Ko Marie, whakalofa hatu, Elliot Ikile here. Tonight, it's just a little bit of a nightcap. Yes, we're doing a bit of impromptu sort of stuff. Things have been very, very busy, as you probably have no doubt aware over the course of the election, the campaign, and the weekend. So, we thought we'd just have a little quick nightcap, and joining with me, of course, is the wonderful Liao Tilsey. Liao, talofa, wamai.
Aloha, Elliot. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yeah, good. Good. Pretty relaxed, actually. So, yeah, no, we had our first COVID ever. So I haven't had COVID before, so it was actually my first hit of COVID. So that was quite fun.
Oh, I
Yeah,
bet.
yeah. I know it sucked. I mean, it was a flu, and this is something that we've discussed
Really?
often. Is that it was a flu. It was a horrible flu, but it was a flu. So I had to hold my tongue a little bit with my bosses because part of me wanted to say, yeah, all your stuff about that's fine. It's fine. I take
Did
it
you have to
easy. I wasn't
isolate
gonna go
or
to.
did you have to isolate
Uh,
or did you?
well, I mean, I couldn't do work. Some of you out there may not know, but my work entails is very heavy duty with those people who are in the trades, the construction area. We I've got to be with them a lot, so I can't be spreading around any germs, COVID or otherwise. So I had to make the call to say, sorry, boss, can't go in there.
You
So
must be
yeah,
very
yeah.
happy with someone who's had COVID.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a flu, and I've also got my bubble tea as well.
Oh,
So
of
it's
course,
all good.
because that solves everything. Bubble tea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So Liao, you're here with us, and Huiabai will be soon later on. I don't know. I don't think tonight, but later on. In fact, I believe I'll be going to see him and his crew tomorrow night. Actually, so that should be quite fun.
Okay.
But Liao, you're just coming out of the election. We all know what the rough results were. Your first take, yourself, your campaign, and maybe even the campaign overall.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard to put into words. Really, there's so much that you want to do. Um, you see a lot of things, and as reporters, as people of faith, as people of who are fully awake, it's very hard to be able to sum up the disappointment I'm feeling right now, um, in regards to it. Sorry, it's still a little bit raw.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think the fact is that you put in a pretty monster effort. You fought really well. Just for our teams out there, it was just really awesome to see you out there. Ginny's coming out there, brave to stand in that space. Absolutely, you were there. I wasn't there on this one out. I took myself out. I didn't engage. So well done, you. You know, it was a big fight. And
It
it was,
was.
I think, so. In terms of the smaller parties, I will put in what I think. Do you have a thought in terms of why Democracy NZ, or you know what, why the small parties, the freedom-based parties, why did they not do well, Liao? What do you think?
I think it's been very grossly unfair. There's quite a few layers here, Elliot, that we really need to actually start to unpack. If you think about initially when each of the parties, the major parties, have over $1 million to advertise, then you're already in a place that you are so far behind in the way that you can get your name out there. You have a very biased media who want to almost bet that this is how it's going to be. And so, it's one thing to blame the minor parties for not coming together, because that's how people see and perceive it. But there are so many layers of corruption that I have seen in this campaign that is just almost unbearably unfair. Where if we were given the same opportunities as, say, Labor, had the majority of people come in and offer you and support you, and be around the country, have a bus that you can travel in. All of these things you think about, you could possibly get out to people and tell them who you are and what kind of policies you have. As it stood, it was grossly unfair. We could only get the interviews that we could. We were snobbed by people. We were snobbed by organizations that had an agenda. And I didn't see that last time. I've seen it for the first time. And to unpack it and actually speak to it is going to be something that will take a little while for us. Even as alternate media, we need to start addressing some of these issues.
Yes, no, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, well said, well said. And I acknowledge that that's definitely something which is there. Now, my belief, and this is my opinion, and it comes from just watching, stepping in that backspace as well. I think that the first mistake, you've said what you think in regards to the smaller parties. I think the failure to combine was a major part of it, because you had the various parties, and they all said roughly the same thing. They all said roughly the same thing, which was a combination of, hey, we're a people movement, not a political movement. Hey, we were here first. We're the more established ones. I've got this. I've got that. Every one of the groups had their very specific, self-pinpointed ideas to why they were going to make it. And it seemed for a lot of us who were in the background that it just looked like it was a splitting, because that's exactly what did happen. It was a split and fractured vote, every one of the freedom-based parties. So I think what happened was that the freedom community ended up being pragmatic, as in you had some went to Democracy NZ, some went to Freedoms NZ, some went to the New Zealand, some went to New Zealand Loyal. So you had all these different parties. But I think the majority of the voting freedom community ended up going, you know what, all these guys, they're not going to make it, so I'm going to be pragmatic and put my vote into New Zealand first. A few would have gone international, but I think a majority of the pragmatic vote would have just gone straight to the guys who would have the other numbers, which would be Winston Peters. And of course, there is a problematic environment in that, of course, because Mr. Peters, his record is a little bit spotty when it comes to delivering what he promises.
A little?
But yeah, because he does actually get maybe about 30-ish% through. And then you had, and Ginny's actually brought one up, a really good point as well. So many just did not vote due to losing faith in the system. Ginny, I agree with you. I voted in the last 40 minutes. I voted at 20 past 6 p.m. I was like that the whole way through, and I'm a real strong believer in that you should be voting. I do believe that, but I understand the frustration, the disillusionment, that it seemed like the whole community, the whole freedom-based community had been crying out, to the point where Bob McCoskrie, who is a conservative guy, even he was putting out these strong indicators saying, merge, umbrella, something, because when you looked at the first polls that came out in those first months when the freedom-based parties came out, in actual fact, the polling would have indicated strongly that these Democracy NZ, Freedom NZ, and a couple of the others were going to get in. But you had so many splinters and fractures going on that the freedom community, I think, just went, you know what, we just can't. So we're just going to have to go with New Zealand first. And I think that that's what happened. Now the other parts, you're absolutely correct. And it's not just it's also every other little party, even down to your crazies like your cannabis liberation and things like that nature. MMP, it's taken me years to get to this point, but MMP doesn't work. It doesn't work, sadly. And I think when you look at it, even one of the main presenters of the political environment, Dr. Bryce Edwards, even he's had a look at this, and one of his areas was that the system is broken. And he put this out there. Advanced voter turnout figures. We just aren't. MMP doesn't work. The political system does not work. It's supposed to be representative, but what it becomes is a game and an industry around that game. So people are just throwing up money here if they can. There's nepotism at play. As you said, the mainstream media will only go with those who they want to go with. Winston Peters is there making a sparky noise, therefore they'll go that way. Politics shouldn't be like this, but in order for politics to operate, sadly, you've got to... Truth becomes secondary to the personality game, and I think that's very sad. Right. I was listening to ZB the other night, and the host on it is an award-winning host who said that, hey, our system's not too bad, and it's a lot better than the Electoral College of the US. And that's absolute nonsense. That is absolute bullcrap. The Electoral College in the US is far beyond the quality of the New Zealand MMP system. Far beyond. It is more complicated, for sure, but it is a much better system in there. So, you're right. The nepotism, frankly, the I would argue corrupt way in which they divvy up the monies and the amount of quality for that feeding as well is just nonsensical. But on top of that as well as Kiwis, New Zealanders as well, we are not. I'm very sad to say that many New Zealanders, and the lockdowns did show this, it was a good indicator of this, is that the New Zealanders will sort of just sit there with the status quo and they'll switch between blue and red. But again, the small groups should have made it easier for the freedom voter. They did not. They refused to make it. I also think in terms of democracy in Z, I think you really were attacked by those who left. I think there's a lot of poison in regards to when they left. There was a lot of, I think, negative poison that was left behind, which affected your party quite a bit. It was unfair. It was not warranted. It was very incredibly unfair of them to do that. But they did. And I think that was actually really wrong of them to do. I mean, politics should not be about stab, stab, stab if I don't get my way. It should be, yep, all right, God bless y'all. Don't want to have a bar of it, but God bless you guys. Do well, and I'm out. That's the way it should be. I mean, look, man, I can go on about NC. I can go on about some of the stuff that occurred in there, but there's no real point to it. Why would you do that? I definitely, but I think you put in a good fight. You battled hard. You battled really hard, and you deserve to have your head held high because you did. You put in a good fight, and who knows what doors that may open in the future as well. We're having a look here. New Zealand loyal, New Zealand first. Yes, Winston Peters is a consummate politician. Too many freedom parties. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kathy. Okay, what are your thoughts there, Liao?
Something. And Nathan has just said they told the Truth Matt's alliance to National. Okay, it's been proven over and over again that it's not true. Why would they put a National person up next to him who won it in the end? What would be the point of that if Matt was supposed to be with National? We had more ex-NC people, New Conservative, there than we did National. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. That is an absolute lie, and just being really sick of seeing that.
And I can actually take you. I can actually attest to that as well. I was not part of the Democracy NZ crew, but Nathan, I can absolutely tell you that was nonsense, and I can tell you that because I was actually a part of not joining, not supporting, but I was part of the communication within the national environment where Grant McCullum was put in that place. All right, so it's nonsense. As in, I'm not saying you're nonsense, but wherever you've heard that from, it's actually nonsense. Just to let you know. It happens. That's all part of politics as well. All right. Mm,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts in Liao in terms of right? So the freedom parties, absolutely, they should have umbrellaed. They didn't. They were told multiple times that they should. I mean, I remember watching Bob McCoskey's video, and I thought that was a great video. You know, they should have just all joined in under that umbrella. I will tell you guys what I think. I think that they should have umbrellaed. I think what they needed to do was you had strong, wonderful leaders in there. Look, Brian Tamaki, who I've changed my mind over the last couple of years because I think he did really well in terms of building his character back up. See, I hated the ring stuff and all that sort of buzz, but I've seen now that he's a much better guy. He's changed or whatever, and I really do. I like him. I like his wife Hannah, and I like Matt. I think I got a lot of affection and respect for Matt. So you had all these leaders, and what I think they should have done is could have put all of the crews underneath one party, and then they should have had a face, whoever that face was, but a face where it's not as polarizing as some of the others. The fact is, Sue Gray is polarizing. She is. She's just too polarizing. And so you've got to have someone who's a face, can fight, charismatic, but a male, female who can at least be that figurehead. And then underneath that, then get all your party votes in, block it up hard, and then everyone gets in, and then you can choose to do as you want in that regard. I think that works.
I think you're right, Elliot. I just want to speak to that because I feel that if there had been the right, not saying that Brian wasn't, but he's, people have known him, people
That's
have
too
seen
polarizing.
him, far too polarizing for someone who was going to facilitate it and not
Mm,
even necessarily be in the party itself. You know, just be the one to bring these groups together, to make them feel that actually they are really important to be part of this, and not sort of go with who you want to put on the list, but to
mm,
make every single party come underneath this to go, you are all really important and we need you for our, for, and have some commonality, because we did. All of us,
mm,
the things, even our, when I watched your vote, the which was amazing. I think we need to do that again if I'm not going to go into politics again. But the vote, to actually, the faith vote, to
mm.
actually go, oh my gosh, we have so much in common. What can we use as a strength to bring, to facilitate this bus
Mm.
as somebody, who was it? There was somebody that brought it up. We're all going in the same direction. We just
Mm.
need to facilitate it in a way that everyone feels that they're honoured and are part of this grouping together. And it's going to take somebody really special to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're right. And I think Brian would probably have to still be a part of it simply because he is a strong element within that force, the operational force and the money area, and we've got to allow for that sort of thing. But I guess these are discussions to be had, hopefully, when things calm down a bit and the freedom-based parties sort of can't evade that stuff, Yep, Charmaine's brought up a really good point. Brian was the only one wanting to make New Zealand Christian again as an official policy style. I think New Zealand was as well, but of course they were very very late to the game. But I absolutely agree with you, Charmaine. He was. I do. I really like what he stood for, and he paid for it. He went to prison instead. Yeah, so I thought that was actually really good. Okay, that's the freedom stuff. That's the freedom parties, and we need to look at that later on. What about the election result itself? So at the current stage, we've got a block of a right wing block, not necessarily conservative, but definitely a right wing block. Heaps of one's guys went down, and the Takanini swapped over. You had Tamaki swap over. You had quite a few swap overs in terms of MPs. But it was right wing, more libertarian than not. Liao, what's your thoughts in terms of the election results overall, the big stuff?
Yeah, I saw this meme maybe a couple of months ago, and it was really the baton being handed over to National. and that's how I feel. There isn't anything that's really changed. We have a globalist leader. We have the national leader who used to be part of Labour. You know that, eh? So
Who's
it
that?
really hasn't. Chris Luxon, he was a part of Labour before he went to National.
Oh, right, but not yeah, right. As in he was part of their financing crew and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, actually, he was a businessman. He just played both ways.
Oh well, so what's going to be different from him now?
Fair point. Fair point.
So I feel like there's going to be other things that are going to be introduced. I feel like the cashless society is going to ramp up. You know, for businesses, it's going to be something that is, I guess, going to be really important. I'm not sure how the farmers are going to fare. You know, these kind of things that we worried about during the election, and wanted to be the conscience of the nation in some way, shape, or form. Um, that's how I see this. It's just one side of the coin is going to work on the next lot of things that needs to happen between now and 2030.
Mm. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I do. I probably don't see it as harsh, but I do see it in the same alignment as what you're seeing, which was I think Christopher Luxon is a businessman first and foremost. He's a CEO. He's what you've got at the moment now looks like a very strongly libertarian, very strongly liberal right wing bloc. So their economic policies will be in general right wing, as in they'll cut down the spending a great deal. They'll bring the economy back into order overall, and that part is good. That is the good part. They'll cut down a lot of the real problems. Hopefully, they also slash out the funding that they've been funding the media. I think that will be very excellent, which perhaps is also why the media itself was so strongly trying to push their left wing ideology, as well as the top party for some odd reason. I don't understand why. So yeah, money definitely. Christopher Luxon, David Seymour, they'll be all about the money. Fear. I think the real problem does come as to what you're saying, where it does come into the family, when it comes into the ideals of religious freedom and faith, when it comes into euthanasia, suicide, and abortion, when it comes to looking after people. That is a major difference that will be there. I think that they probably will try to push the cashless society a bit more. I think that you're right. They'll push. I mean, they are still pushing for the 2050 agenda, which will cost at minimum $5 trillion, which will end up killing a lot of our people. Also interesting that you would bring up the idea that they're just sort of changing over, because of course it was National who brought in co-governance. Co-governance was a National Party push. They're the ones who pushed it. Labour simply took it on and made it heavier. Exactly like the Dawn Raids. Labour brought in the Dawn Raids, National made it stronger.
That's
so
right.
they had a little swap over in that regard. I think it was incredibly sad to lose Simon O'Connor. We lost a man of the freedom, a true free patriot, and a true one of the last few.
Would you really put somebody like the deputy of ACT up against someone who's established there unless he was the moral compass of National?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I could see that it could be a political move from the more liberal sectors of National, really shoving it down there. You're absolutely right. I totally agree with that. This is very sad that we've lost one of our last remaining Conservatives. You've still got some good ones in there, Simeon Brown, Agnes Lohini, but in terms of the broad-shouldered patriots, out and proud, the Simon O'Connor was pretty much one of the last ones left standing. Now they've got to sneak around, try to play the game, be guerrilla in their conservatism. But you know what? It's also the New Zealanders. New Zealanders themselves have, they voted for it. And I think the real, something that we've discussed before, I think there's been an embarrassing drop in terms of the church. I think the Church of New Zealand has a great deal to answer for. So I think that New Zealanders, and especially those who claim themselves to be Christian, really have to have a strong look at themselves for that. So I think we are living in that time of Laodicea, and it's in there. So overall, cautiously optimistic, at least for the short term. Yes, I think that Mr. Luxon will not fix anything that is a conservative nature, and he will possibly bring in other bad things coming into play. But as long as the freedom vote remains a fractured vote, split up, running amok, tails all between the legs, all in the little spots and corners, nothing will change. And hopefully, perhaps we can actually have discussions. Maybe what we can do is try to facilitate at least those discussions to have a hardcore, head-knocking chat about this stuff, because otherwise, same old, same old. It'll just carry on that way.
Absolutely. I think too that everybody had their heart into this. They wanted, we felt. Well, I felt we had been coming to the last of our. If we don't change this, then nothing's going to change. But I think we need to feel a little bit more than we have in order for us to change. I just feel like we've been sitting on the fence. We can still afford food, only just. We can still afford petrol. These are the kind of things we're like, oh yeah, and then we'll just wander in and vote. But when change really starts to take place and we are caged in and we start to feel it, I think the change is going to come in a huge way. And it has to be like that, because that's in our nature. If we don't have to change, then we won't change. We'll just carry on with life, because she'll be right, mate. That's all I've ever heard my whole life growing up here in New Zealand. She'll be right. And we're not right. We still have this most brutal abortion law. We have euthanasia, that we still don't know what the long-term effects are that are happening now. We don't know these long-term effects of what these laws have placed into our lives. We're still trying to battle these small battles, but they're huge, and we're losing people every day to it.
And don't forget, David Seymour has made it very clear that he wants to expand on the legal euthanasia, the assisted suicide bill. He wants to expand upon it. Overseas, I believe that they've already started what they call mature minors. So now 13-year-olds can choose suicide, and it's taxpayer funded. So it's quite extraordinary. He is becoming the politician of death.
Yeah.
And I think even in the South, that could be something which can be brought up. Nathan's brought up a really beautiful quote here, I think, which is, I think it's really good. Leo, my apologies. I'll be reflecting on that again. Apologies. You looked hard. You obviously gave your heart and soul. It's written on your face. Thank you for giving your all. I think it's a wonderful. Yep. Well said. Well said, Nathan. Excellent. Aaron puts out here. Question: does Christopher Luxon know what a woman is? So. He has been asked this question.
Has he? I must say that his wife has got more muscular arms than he does, so that was what was brought up over the last couple of days.
Oh, I see. Now, my understanding is, I don't know for sure, but my understanding is that he gave the proper answer, which was human adult female, or something of the kind anyway, the proper chromosomal placement. Now, that's interesting too, because education-wise, Erica Sanford, one of them. Erica Sanford, the education, or who will be the education minister, has not said anything about stopping that really sexualized education now going onto our children. That was quite fascinating. So, when you're looking at the UN agenda items that New Zealand has been strongly a part of, the gender ideology that comes from the UN as well is still there, and it hasn't been discussed. And they keep trying to make it silly, as in, we're not talking about bathrooms, ha ha ha. not looking at the highly sexualized material being
Yeah.
given out and poured upon children. And the fact that overseas already you've got 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds cutting off healthy breasts, cutting off penises, cutting off their vaginas, having fake penises and fake vaginas, that
Yeah.
it's brutalizing lives and sterilizing them. It's the ending of their family line. And that's something which we need to make very loud and clear to the politicians that, hey, leave our children alone, right?
I
And I think
think
we do. So,
I think you're right, Ali. I think this is going to be very important for especially the alternate media to really help support people to stand up wherever they are, to be able to interview people, to give them a platform to speak out, because we found more, just I've seen it over the election, just the bias of media and how terrible they actually are around misinformation, their misinformation, which you know the majority of people are just going with. We look at our children, and not only are they doing all of those things, but they've lost their identity. Who are they? And this is what we need to bring back into schools. If it's something that we need to start looking at, why don't we have alternate programs to help? Why doesn't not just the church, but communities can step up and say, we want to start running these programs around identity, who they
mm,
are. If you're giving them an option to be something else, can we give them an option to be who they are? You know what I mean?
mm,
There are always going to be alternatives, but we don't
mm,
do it because we jump on the side of people not, of what they're doing. But what can we do? We can make a difference. We can.
mm. Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we can push those things as well. Uh, Kathy's brought up something which is very interesting here. She said co-governance will disappear. Luxon already said this. So it's a sort of. So Kathy, what they said was that they were going to stop elements of co-governance, and in that, more than likely, they will get rid of the Three Waters bill or the law, the policy, and I don't know what they're going to do about the house system, but they've got to wipe it out. Hopefully they do. However, in order to get rid of co-governance in its entirety, that also means that you'd have to do things like disestablish the Waitangi Tribunal. You'd have to also erase the Tupuna Maunga Authority, which I agree with. I think that they are an awfully racist organisation, and I've been there. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. So I don't think they're going to remove co-governance, but they are going to stop the Labour form of co-governance. That's my understanding of what they're going to be doing. So, yeah. Unfortunately, it's not fully as what it should be. It'll be quite good to see how they get rid of it, and this is where New Zealand First will be quite interesting. I will say this: there's a massive elephant in the room that everyone, all the media, seem to be trying to ignore it, which is you've got approximately half a million special votes yet to be counted. Now, whatever you think in terms of the dodginess of different things, 500,000 special votes is a huge amount. That is a lot of special votes out there. So it'll be really interesting to see what the outcome of that is. So I really am looking forward to seeing what that comes out with. I'm hoping that New Zealand First get a few more. I think Winston Peters is our least. Geez, how do I say this? He's a lot better than the others. Yes, he'll only get a minority of what he wants to get through, but he was a good. It's hard because he was a good handbrake to the insanity of Jacinda Ardern's policies. Yet at the same time, he was the person to put them in place as well. So we know that. We know that. It'll be
I
interesting to
guess
see
we're
what
just
the
gonna,
special votes come out.
yeah, I
Mm,
think so. I think too with Winston, even though I've given him a really hard time over the last while, you do reap what you sow, and I feel like people, he will either change and go, all the things I said, and Or he'll
Yep.
do exactly what he did before, which is, radio silence to half of the stuff that
Mm,
he promised.
yep.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a gamble, and I think that's what people did, and they
Mm,
took was that gamble that possibly he could be a little different. But that's what insanity is,
mm.
do something over and over again and expecting a different result, right?
I think I think there'll be a lot of embarrassment. I think it's almost impossible that he will go with Labour on this occasion. I think it's almost impossible. The only reason why I could think he'd do that is that if he was promised to take the prime ministerial position itself somehow,
Yeah,
and then Labour could choose to be Winston Peters' handbrake, so to speak. So I think that's the one that would be a possibility there. I mean, because I like Winston Peters. I like his style. He speaks really well and he's strong, and of course everyone does. The problem is that of course is that he's a weather vane. He's a political weather vane, meaning that the way the wind blows, he'll go with it overall. However, he has gotten so one of the downfalls of Winston Peters was the fact that he allowed the woke element in New Zealand First to really go up strongly. I think probably Tracy Martin was a big one there. So they pushed hard for abortion. Tracy Martin was very, very excited to release the relationship and sexuality education environment. She was very much at the forefront of New Zealand First wokeism, and that's why I think lost a lot of the people as well as, of course, signing the UN Migration Compact and then only admitting to it in the last hour of the last day of 2018. So I think that was quite interesting. But the special votes is what's going to really determine the level of discussion. The special votes. If the special votes basically take Winston out, then so be it. Then he'll be in the back benches or whatever area, and they'll take it case by case. Christopher Luxon, though, being a businessman, he will try to bring New Zealand First into the fold, so to speak. It's just how it will go. But yeah, very interesting indeed. We'll have to see what happens. And November the 3rd is when it has to be all finished up. So it's November the 3rd.
it's
Hmm.
so it's surprising to me. You can count a whole election in one night, but it takes a week to do special, like a week and a
Because
half,
when
two
they,
weeks.
yeah, it's because it's a mostly computerized system. The
Does it have
special
to be
votes
verified each vote?
yeah, it does have to be verified, but I think it takes a while. Yeah, I know. I mean, I understand what you're intimating at. I would love to see a review of the 2020 election. There's a lot of things that didn't really make sense here, but it won't happen under a New Zealand system because politicians hold too much sway over the minds of New Zealand, and they don't want to have anything change, which is quite sad. We'll have to see. Hopefully there'll be some bravery in there somewhere, and New Zealand may actually get a proper functioning political system. Perhaps I'm being cynical. I just don't think it'll happen. That's all. So therefore, I'll move on and do something else. Yeah. I do want to also bring up, of course, the absolutely horrific nature of what happened in Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw Israel having entire families slaughtered. Horrific footage. I'm sure many of us saw it. You can't see it on Facebook. My understanding is because they're not very good with free speech on Facebook, but on other platforms, Rumble and Twitter, they allowed free speech. Therefore, we saw the brutality of what was going on. I mean, there were some cases I was really having trouble just to watch, and I've dealt with human violence matters over the last couple of decades. That stuff just blew all of that straight out the window. I was watching shootings live time. I don't even know if I want to say it on air, but just brutality like I've never even imagined. Liao, what were your thoughts about the terror attacks by Hamas and
Yeah.
the brutality in Israel?
Just completely like out of the blue. Although, Israel's been very, they've been always been very careful about, just whether there are attacks coming. But, from what this has been, from what has been seen, and there was a festival going on from people all over the world that had come for it. They had targeted that particular place where they had foreign nationals. So there must be a bigger reason to this. Are you wanting a world war because you're actually bringing in, you've brought in other people? So normally, just for the Israelis, they would attack specific places, but this was a place where so many foreign nationals were there as well. So, which has made everybody come into this having to be part of it and actually condemn Hamas, because they're not a country; they're an actual organization. And
Mm.
for our country, for New Zealand to struggle to condemn this kind of violence is 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 shocking, but definitely not surprising for the way that we
Yeah.
have. Mm,
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think that was actually I think that was actually a really big part of it, was the fact that New Zealand really struggled to condemn Hamas. We had Nanaia Mahuta saying, "Oh, I'm concerned about the escalation of conflict," and everyone else, all the other countries said, condemn the terrorism. They condemned it, but Nanaia Mahuta did not. And the Greens had never, man, they were being hammered by a lot of people, yet they refused. From the river to the sea, Palestine will
yeah,
be free. It was quite a shocking level of anti-Semitism that we saw in New Zealand and across the world. We
yeah,
saw Nazi issues. So New Zealand's actually got a bit of a problem with Nazism. Not
yeah.
how the lefties want to call everyone who doesn't agree with them Nazis, but an actual Nazi ideology that was being pushed forward in New Zealand.
That's
Quite,
right.
this is quite
Which
incredible.
justified it, didn't it? It
Mm,
justified them saying it. If
yeah,
they can label something, then just it's horrific that New Zealand. How weak have we become that we can't even condemn children, babies, you know,
yep,
innocent people being slaughtered that way.
yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean I think about John Minto. John Minto, of course, is he's the guy who he wrote. I think it was the day after the whole families were slaughtered. I watched people recording as they went up to the cars to check on the people. Bullet holes in young ladies and old people face down in the ground, bullet holes in their heads, and just left lying there like dogs. I watched children. I watched children being attacked on the streets, ripped and kidnapped and taken to Gaza and just smacked with feet while other kids. These children were in great fear. And the horrible truth of it is that they're probably gone. The babies that were held by Hamas terrorists, being held up to the camera and just yelling out different words, but they always combine with the Allahu Akbar phrase. These are babies. I'm talking about babies. They were holding them up, Boogie and all that. The old woman who were paraded in front of the cameras. And these are this footage that I've watched. The one you talked about, the music festival, I watched as some piece of crap was actually raping a woman. Broad daylight with other people dead. One guy actually was also hiding out there. He showed his camera, and there was many different dead party goers in there. And that's not even beginning to talk about the viral video of the German-Israeli woman who was in the back of the van. Her legs were all crunched over, and they were spitting on her, laughing, and doing the old Allahu Akbar and all that sort of stuff in there. The mother says that she's been told that the girl is alive. I still don't believe that for one little second, but we'll have to see what happens. They've kidnapped so many of these people and taken them to Gaza. The latest bodies found just today, New Zealand just today, are now showing signs of rape and torture. So they found more Israeli young ladies, and they've got their hands bound behind them. The officials, the medical staff, have confirmed that they've been raped and tortured before being slaughtered. They're targeting innocents. They're targeting civilians. I watched as families were being held hostage by the kidnappers, by the terrorists, one of the families, every single, they had the mum, the dad, and a little 12-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old there. The look in their eyes was utter fear, and they were talking, and they were told right there that their older sister, I think she was 16 or something, had been killed just then in another room, and very likely, you know what would have probably happened.
Yeah.
The evil that this is incredible. And when you look on the other side, the pro Hamas people are saying, "Oh my gosh, Israelis have been murdering children for years. It's a genocide what they're doing to Palestine." It's like, hang on, they litter the area with warnings that they're about to bomb a certain building because Hamas have used it, and they're trying to use human shields there. Israel will fly past, drop a whole bunch of leaflets saying, get out. They still did that in this as well. They gave those warnings. All right, so, and now the latest, of course, is that, and it's happening right now as we are speaking on this show, the ground force is going in. So they're doing their best to find their people. I mean, it's a tragedy. They slaughtered innocents. They didn't target, they had a couple of military targets, but they mostly targeted the innocents. And that's what's so evil, and that's what makes it terrorism.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard to comprehend that. Hard to comprehend because we're just going through, I guess, the motions of an election, but to actually, yeah, there's no words for it. No words.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was quite shocking. This came from the Holocaust system. The photo that you see there, by the way, that's a really interesting photo. So these people here, these are New Zealand politicians, mostly the Greens.
There's some Labour there, I can see.
Some Labour there as well. Anahita, whatever her name is. And this was on the day of the Kefa, I think it was. That's the scarf that is worn around their neck. And it is a solidarity with Palestine or Hamas. I don't think there is a difference. There's no difference. Hamas control Palestine. So there's no point trying to say that, we support Palestine, not Hamas. If you support Palestine, you're actually supporting Hamas. Because Hamas is the one who uses the millions of dollars that they get for they get millions of dollars, and instead of using it for infrastructure, water, food, the idea of bringing up their people, instead they utilize it for terrorism purposes. All right. Annie, what were the views of John Minto? Yeah, absolutely fair. Let me see if I can. I want to see if I can find that for you. But John Minto, of course, he's a activist around the Palestine. I think he calls it like apartheid or something like that, which is quite interesting. I'm going to bring up for you the document that he wrote, because I think it is important to have a look at what these people actually post out there. So I think it is going to be quite important. Do you know who John Minto is, Leo?
No, I don't. Sorry, I've been I've been immersed in election stuff. I haven't
Right.
really looked into it.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think I don't know how this is going to play out, because this is not going to be a short-term war. Actually, this is going to be quite a longer sort of war. Did you hear about what happened in terms of the Auckland Museum last night or the night before?
Putting lights of Israel and then apologizing for it.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So, I thought it was just utterly incredible that they decided to solidarity with Israel for the terrorism attacks, the attacks on their families and children. I think it was just shocking. Just shocking to see how they were. Yeah, just sort of disgusting. I really did. I really did. I'm not sure. Who do you think is going to come out of this in the end anyway?
Well, hopefully Jesus will come back before then.
Hopefully, but possibly not. 'Cause, we again, there's a lot of girls, a lot of girls, a lot of young ladies who are over in Gaza right now,
Yeah.
and I think that's what it is. Is that already you're seeing more dead Israeli family members coming out showing signs of rape and torture, and I just. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's going to be brutal. And the Israelis are. I watched, and I don't like this, but I did watch I watched Israelis spitting, or not spitting? Yeah, spitting and kicking a dead Palestinian soldier, a Hamas soldier as well. And on one stage, I get it. I understand. They just slaughtered your whole families. On the other stage, they are soldiers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't really talk. It's not like I can sit here and go, ha ha ha. It's not like I can sit there and go, be professional. You're there to do a job, because they're actually they're trying to wipe out the entire Israel population. So I think that's the problem there.
Actually, Kathy just said Minto was around in the All Blacks South Africa apartheid. So was one of my uncles, Scott Crichton. He was a rugby player for the All Blacks during that apartheid. So yeah,
Right.
that's
Oh,
interesting.
okay. Ah, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. My mother actually marched in the Springbok
Of course
protests.
he did. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't she?
Yeah. She was very strong about that. But I tell you what, she absolutely hated the. She can't stand what Andrew Little did to things. She was a hardcore unionist.
Yeah.
I think if
Well,
she was still
he's
around,
resigned, isn't he?
yeah, yeah, awful, awful politician. To be fair, very awful politician. But again, just stuff that we just I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in that regard. I can't even think about what might happen, but it's going to be brutal anyway. Well, look, I think that's a good little nightcap. We just wanted
I
to
think so.
catch up. We just want to have a little chat about things as well. Yeah, so I think it is definitely sort of a thing to keep in mind. I think we'll need to keep an eye on this right wing bloc, not conservative, but very much a right wing bloc. So I think we'll definitely stay up to date. But Liao, good on you. Well done. You keep your head held high. You did really well. All right.
Thank you.
Any last words there for yourself?
Yeah, I just think, wherever you are, just shine where you stand. Whatever you can do to make, your community, your families a better place, then just do it. Like you don't realize what your impact is. If you don't do it, then no one's going to know that you even stood up to anything. So I just encourage people to actually make a stand for something that you completely believe in. You know that is wrong, that is around you, and just be brave. And just yeah, I just think we all need to have that kind of courage. Imagine if all of us did. It would be a different place, New Zealand. It really would. That's all I
No,
have to say.
nicely said. Nicely said. Nicely said. I do want to just bring up something here. There we go. All right. I was looking for something and I found it. All right. I just want to show you. This came from John Minto as well. This was on the 8th. This was one day, not even a day. Sorry, not even a day later. So I think that was actually quite interesting. There we go. Minister Mahuta needs to sheet home responsibility where it belongs with Israel's brutal barbarity towards Palestinians through its apartheid policies and military occupation. So this was as we were waking up to the horrific footage of babies murdered, of whole families slaughtered on the streets, of women being raped on the music festival. Right in the midst of that, as New Zealand was waking up to it, Joel Minto puts us out. And it's utterly disgusting. Just disgusting. Because this isn't after effect where Israel's then bombed back and tried to get people back and all of that. No. This was when it was just in that midst of happening. You know, and that's what it was. It was like, no. It's not Hamas terrorists' fault. It's the Israelis' fault that their own people are being slaughtered, raped, murdered, children killed, women captured and taken back to Gaza as pieces of meat. This is John Minto. And I'm just disgusted by that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least we know who he is now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Wow.
But look,
Anyway.
remember, it's good to keep these things in mind. Good to keep them remembered. All right. So thank you everyone for jumping in there. Really cool to see you guys all there. Aaron. All right, we've got, Aaron's in there, Kathy, Charmaine. All right, we've got Annie in there. Look, good to have you guys with us. We love it. Thank you so much. I'm just going to finish this off on a prayer, and that'll be us for the night, eh? So, dear Lord, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for Liao and Fuiavai and all of those freedom people who push it hard. Thank you for Simon O'Connor. Thank you so much for the hope that they have brought and the strength that they have made, the sacrifices and the bravery that they've engaged in all. So, Lord, we thank you for each and every day you've given us. We thank you for the fight that you've put in front of us to make sure that life is going to be made better for our people. We love you, we thank you, and we can't wait to see you each other again. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amini.
All right. Amen, people. We'll see you later. Fast and forth.
See ya.